What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Sharp Objects Companion Podcast, Season 1, Episode 5, Closer. It is currently raining and thundering outside, which is kind of a perfect backdrop for this show, obviously. Very dark show, but a happy episode is Calhoun Day. You know, it's a super fun celebration of a child bride who gets tied to a tree and raped by a bunch of soldiers during the Civil War. So, you know, let's throw a big party. Very Wind Gap. It's a very Wind Gap thing to do. And, yeah, I don't know. This is actually one of the creepier episodes for me just because the other episodes are creepy. This one was like celebratory or whatever, creepiness disguised as a celebration, I guess. It was weird, man. It's a weird episode to watch. But anyway, now we know why the sheriff didn't think it was a good idea to hold Calhoun Day this year, given the fact that 2 little girls were recently murdered in Wind Gap, and that's kind of what the day is sort of about. I mean, that makes sense, obviously, right? And, of course, Amma is the star of the show, playing Millie Calhoun in an onstage reenactment as the centerpiece of the big party. So, yeah, all in all, pretty goddamn weird day, weird celebration, weird party. But before we get to how this party ends and where everything ends up, let's just go through some of the plot details, and we'll kind of work up to that. So we find out that Amma has 2 phones for some reason. We don't really know why, but, you know, why would you have 2 phones? And, obviously, the second phone is one that her mom doesn't know about, so little sketchiness there. I don't know what she has 2 phones for. Is she a drug dealer? I kind of doubt it. I don't think that's where this is going, but I guess you never know. Amma sees the scars all over Camille's body for the first time, and it seems to sort of like fascinate and frighten her at the same time. She seems to be genuinely sorry. Her initial thing was shock, and then she has some questions about it because she's kind of fascinated by it. She seems to be genuinely sorry for instigating an argument, you know, at the dress shop, and she kind of tries to make up for it by getting Emil a long sleeve dress that she can wear, and it'll cover everything up. She'll still fit into the party, so she's not wearing black. So it seems like she was genuinely, you know, sorry, which we haven't seen a lot of remorse out of Amma in the previous episodes. This was kind of a pivotal character development moment, I think. If you believe her, maybe you think she's bullshitting because she's obviously very capable of manipulating as well, but I don't know. Thought it was interesting. There's definitely some history between Adora and the sheriff, by the way, which we got hints of in the previous episode, or two episodes ago? I don't know. We got hints that there's some sort of history there. Now it's just further evidence by the fact that Jackie O'Neill, the town gossip or whatever, she says that the Kremlin girls love men with badges. Of course, she's referring to Camille and the detective, but obviously referring to Adora and the sheriff as well. By the way, the sheriff's poor wife, I feel so bad for her. Like, she just seems very sweet, like makes him breakfast, gets all his stuff ready, and if there actually is an affair, if it's more than just a flirtation, if there's some sort of affair between the sheriff and Adora, I don't know, man, that would bum me out. That'd make me sad. So I hope that's not the case, but, you know, whatever. It's fiction, I know. Whatever, I'm attached to these characters. So, and this is probably the more pivotal part of the episode, there's clearly a huge focus on Adora's beautiful ivory floor, right, in the house. It gets brought up multiple times in this episode. First, it's a flashback to Camille's childhood where, you know, she gets it dirty and gets yelled out. This is all, by the way, she's getting yelled at because it's getting dirty while this guy's doing a photo shoot. And then at the end, you see there's the poster on the wall, and it's just Adora and the 6th sister. So obviously, she was mad at Camille. Camille wasn't in the actual photo, but if the article, if you pause it or whatever, have a good eye, the article is about the floor itself. It's like, oh, like this ivory floor perfectly matches this beautiful southern home or whatever. It's like a magazine about beautiful homes in the South or something. So anyway, that's the first time we hear about it. Then in the tour that Adora gives the detective where she asks him to take his shoes off, which is interesting too. Like, it's one thing if you take your shoes off on the way in the house. He can keep his shoes on everywhere else in the house until he's about to enter this ivory room, or the room with the ivory floor rather. Then he has to take his shoes off. So it's obviously very important to her. And then finally, when the detective brings it up to Camille, and he calls it a floor made of elephant tusk, and says it's pretty fucked up for him to stand on it, given that he wanted to be an animal doctor. So it gets brought up throughout this episode. Whether there's some symbolism there or whatever, that's interesting to note. And then the final little detail here, after Bob Nash jumps John Keane, Amma runs into the woods and sparks a search party. Camille eventually finds her in the creepy shed, all scraped up. She's even bleeding a little bit. But she doesn't say why she ran off in the first place. Camille suspects, she's scared of something, but Adora just kind of chalks it up to mood swings, teenagers being teenagers or whatever. So that's a real brief summary of the plot of this episode. Honestly, it seemed like another sort of setup episode. We got more, I would say there's more action in this episode than there was in the last one, but they're both kind of setting up for, developments in the case or something. Because so far there really hasn't been any developments in the case in quite a while, since we found out about the teeth or whatever. But there were a few more things I want to talk about. First of all, and this is kind of a side note, and in these shows there's obviously a main plot, there's side plots. this might be a side plot that, I mean, do what you want, but I want to keep my eye on it because I feel like there's something else to it. What's going on with Camille's editor? I feel like there's a bigger story there, a secret of some sort. Like, for example, he's sick, right? We saw him at a hospital bed or something. We saw that he was sick in the previous episode. He can't drink alcohol. He wants to, but he can't. He seems to have some sort of special plan for Camille that goes beyond just wanting her to write, this story for the paper. It's almost like he's a father figure to her. He seems very caring. It seems like when they talk, he's very fatherly, and she almost accepts that relationship too. It's like that's her parental figure in her life, it seems like. I don't know. There appears to be more there. It's worth keeping an eye on, so I figured I'd write it down. We also got some more context on that childhood incident with the football team. The guys are all flirting with Camille as if... See, this is what I'm talking about. Where it was celebratory, but it was so fucked up because these guys are like flirting with her, like, hey, how about we like reconnect by going for a walk or whatever. And they're almost talking as if they had some sort of high school fling with her. But that's such a fucked up revisionist history. So to be like, oh man, we should get reacquainted. Remember that time we hooked up? But it wasn't a hookup. It was like an assault. It was a rape. So it seems like such a wild thing, man. I don't know. I mean, even if you go back to when Camille's talking to the detective about it, Richard, she even says that she kind of implies it's consensual, but whenever you look at the flashbacks, it seems like it wasn't. Like, she was like really out of it. She was surrounded. She's probably too young to consent in general. It looked like she's really young, so I'm just going to call it a rape. I'm going to call it an assault because it seems like that's what it was, and she's almost in denial about it. But specifically, this is worth noting probably, the teacher of the Calhoun Day play, his name's Kirk Lacey, he's the guy playing the piano during the play. He was one of the kids who rapes Camille, adding yet another creepy layer to this weird flirty relationship he has with Amma. If you remember a few episodes back, Amma goes outside and kind of touches his hand, and he seems like, I think a normal teacher's response would be like, hey, you shouldn't be touching me like that. He kind of welcomed it a little bit. You see him kind of smiling, staring a little longer at Amma, when she's doing the play or whatever. And before this, he kind of pulls Camille aside, and he was like, I've been thinking about you a lot lately. Once again, as if they're old ex-boyfriend and girlfriend or something, which they're not. I mean, well, who knows? I guess they could have been afterwards, but it seems like, I don't know, maybe he's seeing Amma, seeing what he saw in young Camille, maybe he's seeing that in Amma now, which is obviously really creepy subtext. And this whole thing also adds a creepy layer to, the other guys watching the gang rape scene in the play where Amma's tied to the tree and they're kind of mock raping her because they're like laughing about it and making little jokes about it, almost like, they're fondly reminiscing about when they did that same thing in real life. Like, it's just some like funny, like how I would talk about like egging a house or something. It's like, oh, remember that time? Like that's almost what they're doing. It's really just the casualness in which this is all sort of brought up and celebrated almost. It's like such a creepy vibe. That's what I was saying. Like, it's creepier in this context at a party than it is when it's like actual scary scenes in the show, like really dark scenes or visions of murder or whatever. Like, this is somehow creepier because you're like, why is nobody else creeped out? Like, it almost emphasizes that. I really enjoyed that. Then, of course, the girls in town that are Camille's age, the ones we first see at the funeral for John's sister, we flash back and realize that they're Camille's fellow cheerleaders back when she was a kid. Now, we kind of knew this. I think they mentioned, like, remember when we were cheerleaders? They mentioned they're cheerleaders, but, this is the first time we saw it in context of her being assaulted. They're all kind of staring at her. She's very isolated on her own. She's wearing the same outfit, so it seems like, this could be the same day before or after. All of this, though, really, all these flashbacks are really just a visual indicator for us, the audience, that all these memories are rushing back into Camille's head. Being around all these people, obviously, is going to spark a lot of memories, and this is just the director's way of showing us that is happening, and it's done really well. I mean, I've said multiple times, the directing in the show is goddamn unbelievable. Even in these setup episodes where it might be a little slower, it might not be the most exciting episode. I mean, we're talking about a full season here, so you're going to have to deal with, some ebbs and flows of excitement. But even with that said, it's still directed beautifully. It's still a masterfully told story. I'm enjoying the hell out of it still, so far. And I'd be remiss not to mention that talk on the porch between Camille and Adora. It almost seems like a super nice moment when they're finally coming together. Like, it seemed like, let's go outside, and they're kind of having a heart-to-heart and apologizing. I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry, whatever. But then Adora drops a hard, I never loved you. She was like, you know what, like, you've always been distant. It comes from your father. She doesn't say angrily, by the way. She says it's like so calm. She's like, you know what, I think that's why I never loved you. And it was said in such a cold-hearted way. Like, I literally, I gasped. Like, I was sitting here, I was like, like, I couldn't believe, I was blown away by, it was just so cold-hearted. I felt so bad. God damn. And then the whole time she's saying it, they cut to Camille, and you just see Camille just like, not even crying or anything, just like, kind of like shell-shocked from it, which is a very good reaction from an acting standpoint, but still very hard to watch. God, dude, it was tough. That was tough to watch. She immediately, of course, goes to the detective's hotel and fucks him while being very careful to keep her clothes on so that he never sees her scars. she's a little bit exposed. You can see kind of on the side of her butt it says closer, which is that's the word she cut into her body there or whatever. But that's the name of the episode, so whatever. Tie that in. Pretty good directing again. But it just hurt to hear. But like I said, another setup episode. Not much to talk about in way of development or where the season's going so far. Still kind of waiting on some big turns. So I'm fine with it. I like this episode. I like the episode before that. But if it goes on for too long, people are going to start to complain. They're going to start to fall off. I've seen that happen a lot. Like even like Westworld kind of took too long to get to the big reveal moments. And we're going to need something, I think, or people are going to start to get frustrated. But hey, not my job. That'll do it for the Sharp Object Companion Podcast, Season 1, Episode 5. We'll be back every single week until the season's over with these companion podcasts. I hope you enjoy. Once again, I'm Nick Rizner. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Rizner, NickRizner, disorderly.com, or thedisorderly.com for the best in sports and entertainment. Disorderly Media on Twitter, Disorderly ENT on Facebook. Search us, find us, like us, share it, share the podcast, rate, review, subscribe, thumbs up. I gave you a million instructions just now, but do any one of those things I just said, and I'll be eternally grateful. And that'll do it. I hope you guys enjoy your week. I will see you next week. Peace.